Now on Fox 13 News at 9, an in-depth look at President-elect Trump's controversial border proposal and how it could impact Utah.
It's day 12 of Park City's ski patrol strike. Employees hope for an end to it soon. Those conversations coming up.
And the winds look to calm down. Now we're just getting ready for our next storm. When's it due to arrive? I'll let you know.
Plus, he's been making international headlines for years. Now we know that accused rapist Nicholas Rossi's case will go to trial. And an 18-year-old boy is the sole survivor of a horrific tragedy in West Valley City. Tonight, we have an update on his remarkable recovery.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13 News at 9 starts right now.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Bob Evans. Our big story tonight is a closer look at what President Trump says he'll do on day one as he returns to the White House in less than 2 weeks.
On day one, I will launch the largest deportation program of criminals. On day one, we will begin the largest domestic deportation operation in American history.
We're going to shut the border down. We're going to have the largest deportation operation this country's ever seen.
So what would that look like here in Utah? Fox 13 News reporter Maithili Gubi took that question to the Weber County Sheriff's Office today. She joins us tonight in studio. Maithili.
Utah Governor Spencer Cox and sheriffs across the state sent a letter to incoming federal authorities asking for some changes. Now, there are still a lot of questions to be answered, but here's what we know so far. In the letter, the main ask is for a change of leadership at the Salt Lake City Field Office of Immigration and Customs Enforcement. They want current director Michael Bernanke removed. They say he is uncooperative and very hard to work with. Also, none of the Utah jail facilities are ICE detention centers, so those facing deportation are taken to facilities in Las Vegas. To make Utah jails qualify as deportation detention centers, Weber County Sheriff Ryan Arbin explained that they're asking for more resources, staffing, and funding.
We've only heard of rumors of what might be happening in Utah. I don't know of a step-by-step plan. I don't know what the plan is. I don't know how it's going to be executed. There's been no signal or communication about the resources needed. Right now, the only thing that I have heard is that they're interested in jail space. And then how that space is utilized, we may be able to accommodate. In Weber County, we have 2 facilities. As most people know, we have our 12th Street facility, and then we have our downtown facility that's on a soft close right now. But it's viable, it's workable, and it could be used for this.
Sheriff Arbin tells me that in order to be an ICE detention center, now there are hundreds of pages of guidelines to follow, including a separate entrance, a different barber, and special access to lotions and oils, among other things.
That just, for immigration, illegal immigrants who are criminals and have that kind of condition.
There are a list of guidelines that these jails have to follow, which is why Sheriff Ryan Arbin tells me the previous sheriff before him had stopped their county jail from being an ICE detention facility simply because they couldn't keep up with it.
Well, it is remarkable. In fact, I spoke with Department of Public Safety Commissioner Jess Anderson today about that very thing. He is just as frustrated as Sheriff Arbin and everyone else in Utah who's been trying to deal with this issue.
A lot of frustrations that have now risen to a level of us calling upon the new Trump administration coming into office and saying, hey, we need some help and let us help you with that. And here's some ideas and some suggestions and the things we're seeing that we're having to own here in the state of Utah.
Anderson says so far there is no indication of how the letter was received and whether anything is being done about it. He's looking forward to having Governor Kristi Noem confirmed as Homeland Security Secretary so they can get some clear leadership on this. But even then, it will be up to Immigration and Customs Enforcement here in Salt Lake to do what it hasn't done up to this point.
The director of the local office has to take a lead on this. And if they're not, then we are willing to, but we're bound through law of only some certain amount of what we really can do at the state level. So that's what we're really weighing heavy on. We just need some good leadership here at the local office, and we're here to support them.
With President-elect Trump's inauguration just 2 weeks away now, local authorities are anxious to see what exactly is going to happen to deal with the broken immigration system and undocumented criminals. At this point, they don't know when they'll have any answers to that. Of course, the president said on day one, everybody here is saying, well, we don't know because we haven't heard anything yet.
I think it's interesting that both Commissioner Anderson and Sheriff Arbin both saying that we don't have a timeline yet. We don't know when exactly anything could come down to them. It could be weeks, months. We just simply don't know.
And so we wait. We wait. Of course, we'll continue to follow this story here on the air and online at fox13now.com. Mai Thili, thank you.
Thank you.
We have an update on the now 18-year-old boy who survived a shooting in West Valley City that left his parents and siblings dead. Shaw Ray has been moved from the ICU to another wing of the hospital, and before school was back in session, Granger High School says many of his teachers were able to visit him. The school posted this photo on Facebook. In the caption, they say Shaw is recovering well and will soon be released from the hospital. We've learned the individual who was shot and killed by South Jordan police over the weekend was a 17-year-old boy. It was late Friday night when police were going after him after he reportedly stole a vehicle near 9400 South and 4600 West. Police say the suspect shot at officers, leading to a chase. Officers ended up killing the suspect in the backyard of a South Jordan home. The suspect's name is not being released because he was a juvenile. The internal police investigation is ongoing. Accused rapist Nicholas Rossi will go to trial in connection with a 2008 rape charge in Orem. During a pretrial conference today, Rossi appeared remotely from jail. Deputy Utah County Attorney Stephen Jones relayed that the state had withdrawn any plea offers in this case, and one will not be offered again. Rossi will now stand trial starting on September 15th for the alleged rape of a 21-year-old woman. Rossi is already set to go to trial in April of this year in a Salt Lake County rape case. This all comes a year after Rossi was extradited back to the United States after claims he faked his own death. Today was day 12 of the Park City Mountain Ski Patrol strike, and the union tells us they're not sure when it'll come to an end. Mediation continues to be discussed with Vail Resorts, whose stock has been impacted by this strike. Park City Mayor Nan Worrell is now urgently calling for an agreement after another weekend of disruption in that community. Fox 13 News reporter Avery Klanowski spoke with Ski Patrol employees for an update on any development in negotiations.
We're ready to roll once we get that fair contract. I think all of us want to be back doing what we do best.
Park City Mountain Resort Ski Patrol employees are on a mission.
Because we see our fight, our union represents around 200 members, but we really see our fight as broader than that. It's not just unique to Park City that people are struggling to live on the wage that they have as a mountain worker.
Third-year ski patroller Tate Finnegan tells me it's been months of the Professional Ski Patrol Association negotiating with Vail Resorts.
In mid-December, we voted to authorize a strike after we weren't really getting any movement with the company in terms of wage proposals.
And we really did everything that we possibly could to avoid striking. Vail really forced our hand. We don't want to be on strike. We want to be doing our jobs.
January 7th marked 12 days of the strike.
I think it's frustrating to hear these guests not having the experience that we know we could deliver if we were able to get a fair contract.
I've heard people say, I've been coming here for ski vacations for years and I'm not going to come back next year because I had this really bad experience.
Now Park City Council is asking Vail Resorts to take immediate action to end the uncertainty.
The mayor of Park City said something along the lines of, this is really impacting our community. It's impacting the national perception of Park City.
And we would rather see this community thrive. We all like to be a part of it. We need to be able to afford to live here and afford to be a part of this community.
The president of Vail Resorts Mountain Division released a statement saying they meet with the union nearly every day to reach an agreement.
We're looking to be back on the hill as soon as possible. It just all comes down to getting a fair contract.
With all the honking.
Yeah, yes.
What does that mean to you?
I mean, it's incredible. Like, to hear just the support of the community, it's been amazing what this town has done for us.
Being out here and hearing people honk, having people pull over and tell us how much they appreciate the work that we're doing and how they support us. It's just incredible.
Ski Patrol is thankful to the community for its overwhelming amount of support. In Park City, Avery Klanowski, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Boy, it looks cold up there, Breck. Your Lisa went skiing up there the other day, didn't she?
She did yesterday, so it was absolutely great. But terrain limited what's open, both on the lifts and the terrain. They need to get those people back to work so we can open everything up. That's good news for everybody, so keeping our fingers crossed. Today, the focus, though, of course, with the weather, the winds here, especially across northern Utah, where we had wind advisories in effect, downslope winds, producing wind gusts upwards of 45 to 60 miles per hour. Again, looking here across northern Utah, but we've also had some concerns with winds across southern Utah. Now here for the north, right now, wind gusts, they're calming down anywhere between 15 to 25 miles per hour. Wind advisory canceled now here across northern Utah. We're holding on to the advisory, though, as you can see why. As we look towards Washington County, still some locations with wind gusts upwards of 40 to 50 miles per hour. So wind advisory not in place here across the north. This will be extended as we look until tomorrow at noon for portions of Washington County. So St. George, Hurricane, Santa Clara, Ivins, Enterprise, you're definitely going to continue to see those winds howling here in the overnight hours. Conditions are improving there. As we're moving the clouds away, it's going to be a clear night as temperatures quickly dropping. Right now we're in the low 30s, but looking to get down into the low 20s. So a cold night as we're going to be looking at conditions calming, but it's the calm before our next storm. When does that next storm arrive? I'll let you know coming up.
Okay, Breck, thank you. Coming up, a massive wildfire continues to burn near Los Angeles, forcing tens of thousands of people to evacuate. We're live from Southern California. Plus, former President Jimmy Carter's remains take one final trip to Washington, D.C. as members of Congress continue to pay tribute to his life. In national news, many structures have burned and at least 30,000 people have been evacuated as the Pacific Palisades wildfire in Southern California has spread out of control. Here is a live look from that area. This is just west of Los Angeles. Santa Ana winds have been fanning the flames all day. The fire has burned nearly 3,000 acres now at last check. The city of Los Angeles has declared a state of emergency as people frantically work to get out of the flames' way.
I didn't see any flames or barely any smoke, and then boom, it just erupted. And then my wife over there was just telling, let's get going, let's get going. So we grabbed the cat, some belongings, and here we are.
Tens of thousands of households are also without power due to strong winds, which are expected to get worse overnight and into lunchtime tomorrow. Gusts are forecast up to 100 miles an hour. FEMA has approved a grant to help reimburse California for the cost of fighting this fire. Las Vegas police say the highly decorated soldier who exploded a Tesla outside the Trump Hotel on New Year's Day used generative AI, including ChatGPT, to help plan the attack. 37-year-old Michael Livelsberger shot and killed himself just before last week's blast. Livelsberger was an Army Green Beret who deployed twice to Afghanistan and lived in Colorado Springs. Officials say he left notes saying the explosion was a stunt meant to be a wake-up call for the nation's troubles, and the country needed to rally around President-elect Trump and Tesla's CEO, Elon Musk. The state funeral for President Jimmy Carter shifts to our nation's capital today. This is a live look at the U.S. Capitol Rotunda in Washington, D.C. tonight, where the 39th president is lying in state and will be there for 2 days before a national funeral service on Thursday, which has been declared a national day of mourning. Scripps News political correspondent Nathaniel Reed reports.
The remains of the late 39th President of the United States, Jimmy Carter, arriving in Washington on Tuesday, taking part in a somber procession from the U.S. Naval Memorial up to Capitol Hill, where the late president was eulogized by Republican congressional leaders and Vice President Kamala Harris.
When Jimmy Carter walked out on the east front of the Capitol and took his oath of office, I was just 4 years old, and he's the first president that I remember. Looking back, it's obvious now to me as an adult why he captured everyone's attention.
President Carter's term as president ended in 1981. And for the remainder of his life, the longest post-presidency of any American president ever, he focused on making the lives of his fellow men better.
Throughout his life and career, Jimmy Carter retained a fundamental decency and humility. James Earl Carter Jr. loved our country.
Members of the Carter family were on hand for the speeches. The casket will remain in the Capitol Rotunda until early morning Thursday, when it will head to Washington National Cathedral for President Carter's state funeral. Nathaniel Reed, Scripps News, Capitol Hill.
And Fox 13 News will bring you more live coverage of the state funeral services for former President Jimmy Carter at the National Cathedral tomorrow morning on Good Day Utah, starting at 7 a.m. Meta is making major changes to its content moderation. Founder Mark Zuckerberg says Facebook and Instagram will get rid of fact checkers. They will be replaced with community notes, which are user-generated. These adjustments come on the heels of President-elect Donald Trump's criticism of the platforms for what he said was the censoring of conservative-leaning opinions. Zuckerberg says these changes could result in more harmful material being displayed on accounts.
Well, it's been a blustery day here across the state, especially for northern and extreme southwestern Utah. View from our Oquirrh Mountain camera looking across the Salt Lake Valley. Skies clearing as we're going to be looking at a very chilly night and some cold temperatures here over the next few days. All right, looking at the upper level pattern where we have this low pressure system and wrapping around, it's generated that northeasterly flow here throughout most of the state, and again producing those downslope winds. Now, high pressure, clockwise rotation, you're getting kind of this confluence as you're seeing that flow moving over the mountains of Southern California, generating these strong winds where this has been a big concern. High wind warnings, as mentioned, in effect through that area. Wind gusts currently, as we talk about the Palisade or Pacific Palisades fire there, right now wind gusts at 26 miles per hour, a little bit stronger in Los Angeles. Looking over towards Nevada, though, at least in Laughlin, looks like wind gusts upwards of 40 to 50 miles per hour. Now, as we look across the state, still finding that northeasterly flow, but the direction's beginning to change here across northern Utah as it becomes more northerly. We're not worried about the downslope winds, but as you can see, southwestern Utah, Washington County, that's definitely an area where we'll hold on to some stronger winds here in the overnight hours. Temperatures, it's all 33s here throughout the Wasatch Front. Again, looking at the winds improving here where we do not have a wind advisory in effect for Weber and Davis County. That has expired, but holding on to it here, as you can see, for portions of Washington County, incorporating St. George, Santa Clara, Ivins, heading up through Hurricane as well. That'll be the focus up until noon tomorrow. Now, that low pressure system moving south and moving off towards the east. Again, we don't see that easterly flow, more northerly, which is going to usher in some colder air. Yeah, dropping temperatures here for the next few days as we'll hold on to this cold northerly flow. Dry here as we look for the rest of the week. Then we're hoping to build in high pressure, but what happens is we get a dip in the jet stream, which will keep the flow going out of the northwest there with a little storm system where brunt of it staying north of the state, but a cold front moving through northern Utah. That brings us a chance of some snow showers as we head into Saturday. But for tonight, mostly clear conditions, I should say, where temperatures dropping down into the teens for many spots, single digits in Park City. Tomorrow, it's colder. It's 30s here along the Wasatch Front. 20s in Park City as well as in Evanston, central Utah. Looks like mainly mid to upper 30s and low 50s in St. George. I mentioned it staying dry and sunny, but colder, I should say, where temperatures drop down into the 40s, and next week remaining in the 40s, but looks like the storm system again for the weekend just will have a bigger impact across northern Utah with a chance of some scattered snow showers. It's all 30s, so feeling that winter chill. Only one day where we see some snow, but we're letting go of the winds as we head into tomorrow. We're back after the break.
A St. George man found guilty of killing his 2-year-old stepdaughter in the summer of 2023 received the maximum sentence today. Randy Lessing was sentenced to serve 5 years to life for the death of Emmeline Mitchell. He's also set to serve consecutive sentences of up to 5 years on 2 other counts related to DUI and drug probation violations. Lessing spoke to the court, as did the mother, Zecora Ringer, who told Fox 13 News afterward justice had been served. She feels like today's judgment will keep her going as she raises a son.
Knowing that my daughter can rest peacefully now, and that she, can look down on me and be proud of what I've achieved, fighting for her afterlife.
During sentencing, Judge Jay Winward had a bailiff remove Lessing's parents from the courtroom after they yelled expletives at Ringer and the judge. The roundabout that has been under construction on Utah's Capitol Hill for months is now complete. UDOT installed it to improve safety. The old traffic pattern caused confusion for drivers and only offered one crosswalk to pedestrians.
It worked great for people that understood how the stop signs work, but it's not intuitive. Like when you're heading up State Street to a T intersection and you don't see a stop sign, unless you know you have the right of way, people are going to stop. So I always thought it was confusing for people that didn't know.
UDOT also pushed back the State of Utah sign so people have plenty of space to take photos without standing in the street.
One child is too many.
Last September, a young girl was hit by a car on her way to school. It shook the community so much, city leaders say now is the time to make major changes. Plus, caught on camera, hear from the driver who swerved off a canyon road to avoid a head-on collision. And a new study says to help the Great Salt Lake and bring it to a sustainable level, we need to make bigger water cuts. We'll show you just how much coming up. We are now hearing from the people who narrowly avoided a crash in American Fork Canyon. Dramatic new video shows the moments a driver swerved off the road to avoid a head-on crash last month, totaling their car. Watch this. They tell us the other driver was going more than 70 miles an hour, too fast to capture the license plate.
That car just appeared out of nowhere, coming super fast, and the only thing I could think of was just get out of the way, so that's what I did.
We do feel really blessed that the way that it came out, that there is damage to property, but nobody got hurt. Zach did the right thing and, got them out of the way safely. And it happened to be in an area where they could go kind of up the side of the mountain instead of off into a ravine. So, we do feel really blessed. But at the same time, we would like to see some closure and some, the person that did this held accountable for it.
The Utah Highway Patrol tells us they're looking for the driver who crossed the center line. UDOT released data today breaking down the deadly crashes on Utah roads in 2024. The key statistics show 281 lives were lost last year, a slight increase from 2023, which dropped from the year before. 53 motorcyclists died in Utah last year. That's a 15-year high. There was also an uptick in cyclist and pedestrian deaths. July 2024 was the deadliest month of the year with 43 deaths, nearly doubling all of the other months of the year. There were 19 teen deaths last year compared to 38 the year before.
Each and every one of these numbers represents a life, and so if you're talking about a 50% reduction in the number of teen fatalities, it's incredible.
More than twice as many men as women were killed on Utah roads last year. 23 deaths were linked to aggressive behavior. A quarter were caused by speeding, and well over a third of all deaths were alcohol and drug related. An 11-year-old boy who was hit by a truck in a crosswalk in North Salt Lake last September has pushed officials to make some changes. The accident at Center Street near 350 East almost took Riley Ward's life. City engineer Karen Baxter says the area many children walk through to get to school lacks a sidewalk and lights. They have plans set in place to make the intersection safer.
The project itself will be to install sidewalks so that they can come from the residential streets, walk down the sidewalk on the south side, and then use the crosswalk with a crossing guard at the signalized intersection to go to the elementary school.
Baxter says because of the crash, they've decided to push the project further along this year. Over the summer, the sidewalks will be built. A light will be installed early this year. If you have ideas about keeping Utah's roads safer, scan the QR code on your screen and fill out the form at fox13now.com. We really do want to hear from you. A new study suggests some deep cuts need to be made in alfalfa and hay production in Utah to help bring the Great Salt Lake back to a sustainable level. The study, which was published this morning in the journal Environmental Challenges, recommends some policy proposals, including fallowing. That's where you pay farmers not to grow certain crops to save the water. But that could cost Utahns. The study calculates a minimum of $29 per resident per year.
Bare dirt fallow, we all know what would happen when we have those summer storms. All of that comes off. We're trying our very best to be good stewards of the land.
We can figure out a mix of solutions that really helps those farmers and ranchers financially, gets them out of some of the binds that they're in, and also enables them to be the heroes that are going to save this lake.
The study has been shared with the Great Salt Lake Commissioner, who oversees efforts to save the lake. He says water conservation needs to be a statewide effort, with cities doing their part, as well as Utah's agricultural community. Fox 13 News is part of the Great Salt Lake Collaborative. It's a group of local news outlets, academic and community organizations calling attention to the Great Salt Lake and solutions to save it. You can find out more by visiting greatsaltlakenews.org.
It's the first Tuesday of 2025, meaning it's time for Max Tracks. Today, my dog Chaco and I brave the low temps of the high desert to experience the people and the landscape of the Blanding area.
If you remember, last Friday we found out that Fox 13 News anchor Max Roth was going to Blanding for the first 2025 edition of Max Tracks. Here's how his trip over the weekend went.
San Juan County's canyons humble travelers. Its buttes, spires, and hoodoos steal movie scenes. And it has the only population in Utah where minorities, in this case Navajo and Ute people, rival the numbers of white residents. Its high elevations mean winters are cold, but my dog Chaco and I are intrepid. So we kicked off 2025's Max Tracks in style.
It is a gorgeous morning, and as far as I can see, we're the only people in this entire campground. And by we and people, I mean me and Chaco. Not a person.
The to-do list in my head told me to find the place Dan Evans randomly pointed me to.
On here to that.
Zeke's Hole. A little Max Track serendipity, the Zeke of Zeke's Hole was Ezekiel Johnson, the original custodian of Natural Bridges National Monument. Zeke ran his guide business out of Blanding. The Utah Historical Quarterly shows his pack team fitted out on a dusty Blanding Main Street. Local lore says Zeke took a $1 annual paycheck. Natural Bridges is Utah's original National Park Service location. It's the only monument or park in Utah designated by the father of America's national parks, Teddy Roosevelt. Chaco and I headed out.
Oh, do you have a duck? Is it my duck?
The turnoff for Mule Canyon ruins caught my eye.
It's pretty cold out here, so I'm probably not going to linger too much. Should we find Zeke's Hole?
Plus, we had a hole to find.
That's a yes. So I found Zeke's Hole Road, but not Zeke's Hole, because it has just taken me higher and higher. As you can see, I'm at a high point where there's lots of wind. Often the old trappers they'd have their place, and it would be called, like Jackson Hole was originally Jackson's Hole, and then they just thought Jackson Hole sounded better. But anyway, it means a low portion of ground that's a little bit out of the elements. This is not out of the elements. This is not a hole. This is a high point. I am standing on exactly the spot where Google says Zeke's Hole is. And it is not.
At one point, we got enough cell service to see more detailed road info and took a new turn on Zeke's Hole Road.
This road is actually 2 or 3 roads. Zeke's Hole Road. This is Zeke's Hole Road. And that's Zeke's Hole Road. This one goes in a loop back to the highway, and I think this one goes up and around in another loop. So, Zeke, you sound like you were a really cool guy, but man, you're hogging the roads, dude. Hogging the roads.
Zeke was a Blanding man, so it makes sense his hole was less than 10 miles from town.
We're in Blanding at Patio Diner.
Patio Diner is Blanding's longtime hangout. Order a burger, fries, and a shake with a side of conversation with friends.
In fact, my granddaughter works here.
What's your granddaughter's name?
Her name's Alyssa. Yeah.
Alyssa! Do you call her Grandma?
I call her Granny.
Granny.
Lori Metzger has found friends here.
I think this is the longest I've lived anywhere at one time. So, yeah.
So you've stuck.
Yeah, I like it, even though my sister lived here when I moved here. And even though she moved away and my mom moved away, I'm staying. I love Blanding.
Lori's sister owns Patio.
Now, this piano is totally out of tune because I haven't played it in a long time.
One sign of a warm sister relationship.
My sister was remodeling the place. She kept telling me, I'm going to put a piano in here and I'm going to have you play the piano. And I was just like, I thought she was kidding me. Nadia's theme.
Dun, 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 dun.
Young and the Restless.
Is it Young and the Restless? Oh, okay.
When she told me one day, she's like, the piano's on its way. It should be here in about a week. I was like, are you serious? You seriously want a piano here?
As I sat with Lori, Dan and Karen Mariano walked in with their sister-in-law and niece. They came up from Mexican Hat.
I like living on the reservation.
Karen and her niece shared videos and photos of the place that Karen loves, with a view of what we call Monument Valley.
Monument Valley is Tepindeskai.
The family members told me the Navajo evokes the color of the rocks, how they shine in the sunlight with white striations contrasting with the dark reds and blacks.
They barely got to city how many years ago? I'll say like 10 years ago.
But running water is still a ways away. Karen still loves her home, though. She, Dan, and the kids raise animals.
I was raised with like how I am now with the sheep and goats and horses. I lived in a one-room house. I was like, I didn't have my own room.
One-room house?
Uh-huh.
Oh my gosh, how many people were in the house?
There's like 4 of us.
A scarcity of what many of us assume are necessities, with a wealth of solitude and beauty.
Even though it's hard, like we don't have running water, and then we have to go to a nearest community to take showers, but we're used to the routine, and I think I'll rather stay where I'm at right now.
Natural Bridges, where we camped, is at about the same elevation as many of Utah's ski resorts, so spring and fall are better for camping. But it's also one of the world's best dark sky locations, and there's a longer dark sky night in the winter. It's a good place to look up, feel small, and also feel lucky that we get to occupy this part of the planet. In studio, Max Roth, Fox 13 News, Utah.
As we go to break, I want to share a photo coming on our Facebook page. Pine Valley Mountains, of course, the winds towards southwestern Utah carrying over the mountains, creating these cool cloud formations. We've got more winds in the forecast. We'll tell you when they'll end coming up after the break.
Want to get you back up to speed on that massive Pacific Palisades wildfire in Los Angeles tonight. This is a live look at the blaze. Santa Ana winds have been fanning these flames all day long. The fire broke out this morning at about 10:30. California Governor Gavin Newsom says many structures have been burned to the ground. 30,000 people have been evacuated. We don't know of any injuries at this point, but because of these Santa Ana winds, the fire is spreading so quickly. It started out at about 320 acres this morning. Now it's into the thousands of acres, and firefighters from Los Angeles and all over Southern California have come to fight these flames. Of course, the Santa Ana winds, it's predicted that they will crest at their peak at about 100 miles an hour between now and 5 a.m. And Breck, I got to tell you, this is a terrible situation down there.
Very dangerous, and it's going to be a long night for sure, where the winds, again, as you mentioned, strong here, moving in the overnight hours. We take a look at some of the current wind gusts right now. Los Angeles at 30 miles per hour. As we look at Pacific Palisades, currently at 26 miles per hour. But again, these are just current wind gusts. We have been looking at some of those gusts throughout the afternoon to the early evening hours, getting upwards of 75 to 80 miles per hour, so hurricane force. And again, there'll be some locations could even be stronger here. Now, as we look at the winds here throughout northern Utah, they're calming down. Some decent gusts across southwestern Utah. We take a look at your temperatures, where a cold air just sliding through the upper Midwest, through the central plains. Of course, you've been hearing about this winter storm making its move, bringing snow all the way down through Texas under that cold spell. We've got that low pressure system now moving to the south. As it moves to the east, we've turned off that downslope winds here across northern Utah, but it looks like we'll continue to see some strong winds with a wind advisory in effect for portions of Washington County up until noon tomorrow. Still potentially could look at wind gusts, as we're seeing right now, anywhere between 40 to 50 miles per hour. Clouds moving away with that low pressure system continuing digging further southward, and then to the east. It could wrap around a little bit of moisture here across southeastern Utah. Our model's showing that, but that will quickly fade away heading into tomorrow morning. Now, for northern Utah, we'll be looking at partly cloudy skies throughout the afternoon. We're keeping the storms away. We will usher in some upper level moisture, which could produce some snow showers over the Uinta Mountains. But again, the rest of the state staying fairly dry up until tomorrow morning, or I should say Thursday morning, where we potentially could be producing some overnight showers as we look between Price down through Green River into central Utah. But Wasatch Front tomorrow, as we look throughout the day, a few high clouds around. It's going to be chilly though. Highs only reaching the upper 30s for afternoon highs. As for most locations, only looks like they'll be in the mid to upper 30s, with expected high in Milford at 40 degrees and low 50s in St. George. It's staying sunny. Cooling trend, I should say, as we look for St. George, where temperatures by next week only reaching the upper 40s. Now for northern Utah, we do have a storm system for Saturday that's going to bring a chance of some snow showers. All in all, we'll keep temperatures for most days below average, and even some clouds throughout the weekend. This will be a brief storm, but at least here across northern Utah, we're letting go in the winds, but we've got the chill to remain.
After wins in Miami and Orlando, the Jazz took a two-game winning streak into tonight's game at home against the Atlanta Hawks. Could they win their third straight for the first time this season? Jazz played tough first half. Colin Sexton to Lauri Markkanen. He throws it down. The Jazz trailed by as many as 16, but cut the lead to 3 at the half. After the break, Isaiah Collier to Markkanen. Another big jam by the finisher. He led the Jazz at 35 points. Went down to the wire. Jazz down 3 late. Sexton for 3 and the tie. Yeah, it's good. with 4 seconds left on the clock, but hold on, Trae Young has it for the Hawks from midcourt and the win. Oh my goodness, he made it for the win. Trae Young with the big shot at the buzzer. The Hawks won at 124-121, a tough loss for the Jazz. College basketball now. BYU at home against Texas Tech. End of the first half. Trey Stewart puts up the 3 before the buzzer, and it's good. Cougars led it by 2. Second half, Yegor Demon to Fousseyni Traore. He scores 2 of his 14 points off the bench. Then it's Demon again. This time takes it all the way to the rim. The Cougars were up 5. He finished with 12 points, but Texas Tech pulled ahead down the stretch with a 72-67 win, dropping the Cougars to 10-4. Utah looking for their first Big 12 win, but a tough test at third-ranked Iowa State. Gabe Madsen for 3, part of a 15-2 run for the Utes. They were up 5. Nice play here. Gabe to Ezra Asar. Rocks the rim, but the Cyclones closed out the half on a 21-3 run. They led by 13. Second half, Gabe Madsen the steal. Takes it all the way to the rack. That cut the lead to 9. He led the Utes with 20 points, but Iowa State pulled ahead to an 82-59 win, dropping the Utes to 8-6. 25th ranked Utah State played at San Jose State. Here's Mason Falslev. 3 of his 17 points put the Aggies up 8 in the first half. Then right before the break, it's Jordy Barnes to Tucker Anderson. The Aggies led it by 9 at the half. He had 15 points. Second half now, Ian Martinez for 3. He had 14. The Aggies win it 85-78 to improve to 15-1. The Utah Hockey Club will start a 7-game homestand tomorrow night when they host the Florida Panthers, the defending Stanley Cup champions. Utah's Kevin Stenlund played for Florida last season. The Panthers won the Stanley Cup after losing in the final the year before. Stenlund says that team was a close group that helped them play better on the ice. Head coach Andre Tourigny said with the help of Stenlund, this team is bound together well.
Really proud about the camaraderie we have in our room and how the boys like each other. So it's something we always been really careful and really pay attention to. Panthers went to the final the year before and they lost in the final. I think their success and their failure build you tighter, and they got a reward last year, so we aspire to do the same.
We'll have much more in Kevin Stenlund this Sunday night at 10 o'clock on Inside Utah Hockey Club. We'll be right back.
We're out of time, but we had to show you this student arts reception at the Covey Center for the Performing Arts in Provo. You could hear from the student artists themselves about their artwork. The display will be up all month long. You got to go see it if you can.
Talented kids.
That's Fox 13 News at 9. Quickcast is up next.